Hi, and welcome to our page at Chronically Rah Rah, the fight for answers and the fight for a cure. And welcome to our very first series of Chronically Married in sickness and in health. And basically, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be talking about what it's like to be chronically married when there's chronic illness or some kind of debilitating illness involved. So we're just getting started. So we're going to give it a minute to let people get caught up. In the event, because we're actually using my daughter's Kindle to have this go live. So in the event that the Kindle doesn't want to do what we need it to do, we've got the computer and two smartphones on backup. So if something happens, just stay with us. And we'll get started here in just a minute. Just to let you know, we are going to be taking. Are you trying to do it that way? So just to let you know, we're definitely going to be taking questions. So if you have any questions for us, definitely have those ready. We're going to do a Q&A session and really just allow this to be a time to be completely authentic with our viewing audience, whether you're joining us live now or whether you, watch it later while you're doing your hair or going to the bathroom or whatever it is you do and you take your phone with you. So anyway, yeah, we'll get started in just a moment. Let me hold on a second. I guess I can't bring up my own live feed on my computer, can I? Like where I can watch it?
No.
We're trying.
Yeah. I think it's like a narcissistic battle
Hi,
for Facebook.
Teresa.
So yeah, being able to watch yourself on Facebook is seems kind of silly.
Well, I don't want to watch myself on Facebook. I want to be able to for like when we get to the Q&A part, if people have questions, I want to be able to
Well, it'll pop up at the
read
bottom.
the questions. Yeah, but I can't see.
I can read.
Um,
Didn't you marry me for my reading purposes? My articulation. Being able to see further than 3 feet in front of my face, I can read that. Yeah, see, Shalice is on here.
I know. I'm so excited. How are you, lady?
Any questions for us? Non-musical related? I don't know why I'm yelling. I'm so used to playing music and being out and yelling in a mic, so this is kind of a little bit different for me.
Okay, so I'm gonna get. Okay. All right. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. If people end up, you're awesome. So if people end up coming on, throughout this by, that's great. So anyway, so my name is Lindsay.
My name is Josh.
And we are a chronically married couple. So what does this mean? So we're going to talk a little bit about us first. We've been married for 5 years in October. So October 28th was our wedding anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't know how long we were married for.
Doesn't seem like that long to me, but you feel like it's probably an eternity. So
we've half a decade. We've done it half a decade. We're doing good. So we met at work. Do you want to say how we met, or?
I don't mind. Yeah. I mean, you want to tell a story? Do you want me to tell a story?
You could tell a story.
So anyway, the way I saw things transpire, actually, there was an event. If any of you guys work for big corporations, you probably have have gone to company outings. We had one where we went to the Cincinnati Zoo. I have to be careful because I'm going to say San Diego. I messed up and said Cincinnati Zoo on a couple of emails writing back to them. So anyway,
we don't live in Cincinnati anymore.
We don't live anymore. So, but anyway, it was the Cincinnati Zoo. And honestly, it's probably Lucy that got us together because I was actually at the zoo and in the children's part of the zoo, and there's this little girl playing on this the playground, and she just turned around and struck up a conversation with me, asking me to look at what she was doing. She's like, "Look what I can do. Look at this and look at that." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Well, I feel weird. I hope somebody doesn't think I'm some weirdo stalking kids at the playground." So anyway, that happened, and I saw her walk away, and I noticed I saw Lindsey. I'd seen her before at work, had never talked to her before, and so anyway, ended up going back to work. I don't know how long ago it was. I got the nerve up to actually walk up to her, and I was just talking to her and basically mentioned that she had a beautiful daughter and whatever, and of course she just blew me off, thinking this freaking creep is like eyeballing my daughter just to come over to talk to me.
He
you
did.
Can take over from there.
He did. He was like, "Your daughter is so beautiful," and I was like, "That's great." Like, because I was just at a point I had gotten out of a relationship, and I was just not about it. I was just like, "Who's this guy? Like, that's great. He's around or whatever." And when I first saw him, I knew that he was a musician. And let me, like, how that played in my mind, I was like, "Oh, great. He's an effing musician. Everybody's a musician, you know?" So it didn't really do anything for me. If he would have been a scientist, I would have been like, at first I would have been like, "Oh." So, but yeah, and we ended up striking up a conversation, and how he asked me out was...
Didn't really even ask you out, honestly. It was... You had somebody on Facebook stalking you. We started chatting on Instant Messenger at work, and she was talking about how there was a guy on Facebook who kept stalking her. She was very irritated by it. So I asked her if I could fill out an application to stalk her as well, and that was kind of the icebreaker for me. Obviously it worked.
Well, that and like that. I don't know. There was a Halloween that I was like a princess, and I had this sign that said taking applications for Prince Charming, and he was like, "Hey, can I fill out an application?" And I was like, "Oh, well, that's kind of ballsy of you. So yeah, if you've got the balls to ask for an application, then sure." So, and we dated for a little bit.
Yeah.
And we broke up for a little bit. And we dated for a little bit.
Yeah. So, yeah. And come to this day, the girl that got us together is a pain in my rear end now. So, dear sweet Jesus.
But he's awesome with our daughter. He raises her as if she were his own. So he's a good dad. So yeah, so that's the mushy stuff. So that's good mushy stuff. That's a good icebreaker. And you know what? You know, we obviously both used to work together when we lived in Cincinnati, and we ended up moving to San Diego because 4 years ago, in a couple of weeks, it would be 4 years, I joined the Navy. So it was kind of one of those, unfortunately, Josh has lost his job, and I decided to take one for the team. And, you know, I had a year left in college before I was done with my bachelor's in biology. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just go ahead and do this. And, you know, that way we have support, and, you know, that will be that. And so
And I think that happened when we first got married, they told us that we couldn't work. At first they told us we couldn't work at the same company because we were going to be married. And it was a conflict of interest of us being married there. And then after a month of us, after we decided that she was going to take a break and go to school, then they told us what was like 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline or something like that, that you didn't have to quit, but we'd already made preparations for that. And then I ended up getting let go about 2 months later. And so that was our first struggle. We were both without a job, and then finally I started working again, and then that ended up that lasted what, like 8 months. It was a temp job, and then I think after that second time is when she decided she was going to join the Navy, because it was just all up and down. And then when I was working my second job after IMED, things were going okay. I mean, I was getting tons of overtime and
Yeah.
making really good money. And then I lost that job, like, I think it was like the week of Thanksgiving.
The week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was actually driving into work and got let go over the phone. And so after that, that's when we had talked. We went through a couple of real rough months on that one as well. And then by the time I started working again, she'd already started the process of getting in the Navy. So she ended up going through. They don't call it boot camp, do they?
Yeah, it's boot camp.
Boot camp? I don't know if they call it boot camp. It just seems strange to call it boot camp, Navy. Anyway, so she went through boot camp, graduated, was in Chicago for a while. She was. And then after that, she got shipped out here to San Diego. And, of course, Lucy and I were home by ourselves for a solid year. And then we moved out here the week of Christmas, because originally they told us that she was going to be shipped out to her command, which is already on deployment. Like, I think it was January 21st. And then like a day or two before Christmas, they told her it was going to be on the 1st. So Lucy and I had to pretty much drop everything and just head our way out here. And we got, it's supposed to be like a 5 or 6 day drive. We made it in 3. Just guys being guys. We did it in 3 days.
It's like so basically we have already known, so I guess what I want to say is, like, that was kind of the start of us, like, knowing what it's like to be chronically married, and having that, we had dealt with, job losses, issues with exes. We spent a good year and a half of our marriage, like, away from each other. Not even, like, living together, whether it was because I was on deployment or when I was living in Chicago for almost a year. And situations like that really kind of was the building block for us to be able to have that foundation that we needed when we got to the point that we're at now.
Our first year and a half, 2 years of marriage with job losses and having to be away from it.
The first year was horrible.
We were like
it was the worst.
We were like the Job of marriages. I mean, it just seemed like nothing was ever going to go right. And like, God, and if any of you are watching who were there at the time and helped out, I mean, we sincerely appreciate that, because we know a lot of people stepped up and helped us out at that time, monetarily, emotional support. I mean, it was a very, very rough time, but yeah. So
if you see me eating crackers in between, like, I'm sorry. Like I told you on my page at Chronically Rah-Rah, you're gonna get the good, the bad, the very ugly, and the, like, super uncut. And I'll be very honest, like, right now I woke up with a ton of pain. Again, I can't keep anything down, and the nausea is so bad right now. I'm just hoping that, like, crackers and a little bit of ginger ale at a time will be able to like keep it at bay until we go to one of my doctor's appointments tomorrow, where I can get more anti-nausea medication and pain medication. So if you see me chewing on crackers, it's because I'm trying not to throw up in front of you guys. But like I said, I promised we were going to keep this real. So, and that's why we're sitting in bed too, because I'm not getting up. So when did this all begin? When did the idea of being chronically married all begin? When did we start this journey into where we are now? And I guess the first, where really the ball really started rolling, when shit started hitting the fan, if you will, I would say, and I don't know, what your thoughts are, but I would say when I had my tonic-clonic seizure
Yeah.
back in June, and that was June in 2015. So if anybody is on here that doesn't really know who we are, in June of 2015, I had some pretty nasty tonic-clonic seizures or grand mal seizures after going out and watching him play and just having a couple of drinks. Something that was like completely normal for me.
Yeah, and she ended up meeting some people down there and wanted to hang out because she didn't really get out that often. At the time, she was still on the ship, right?
Mhm.
And so she didn't really get out that often. So she wanted to hang out, and yeah, it got to a point to where I got a call from one of her shipmates who she actually called them. I guess she was feeling disoriented and all kinds of crazy stuff. She was actually texting, and so I actually drove down um, to San Diego because a half an hour before um, I started getting messages about something, something was going on with her. I actually called her and talked to her and told her, I was like, go ahead and get an Uber home because it's starting to get late and I don't want her to be down in San Diego till 1 in the morning um, by herself. Um, so,
Paul's down.
so anyway, I went down looking for her. They said she was supposed to be at a pizza place. I didn't find her. I came home. She was actually laying on the floor. Um, she wasn't coherent. Um, she wasn't responsive. She was breathing, but not responsive. And so I didn't see any seizure activity at that time. I didn't even know what was going on. So I tried to get her up in bed. As soon as I got in bed, she just started having seizures, one right after the other. So she ended up calling the hospital. She went to the hospital. She was in there for like 3 to 4 days.
I think it was in there like 5 days because it was. So basically, like it was I don't know, like 4 days before I could even 4 or 5 days before I could even walk on my own again.
It took her 2 days to even regain like
Speech.
yeah, decent speech patterns. I mean, the first day she was there when she came to, I mean, she couldn't even talk, and then it took until the second day to where she's able to form sentences, but it was very, very slow. And the aphasia she has now, I mean, it was pretty much like that, except for it wasn't taking her just a few seconds to put sentences together. It was like minutes upon minutes for one sentence to come out, and it was like guesswork. It was trying to figure out what she needed, what she wanted. She couldn't write. Her hands weren't working properly, and her motor skills were just all off.
I mean,
So.
if anything brings a marriage together, if a couple that wipes ass together stays together, I'm sure some people that are watching this now or that will be watching this in the future are like, TMI. But like I said, you're getting the nitty gritty. But I mean, that he did like he that was at that moment like he got his first taste of it was almost a foreshadowing of what it was going to be like to be my caretaker because at that point he was doing everything for me, pretty much like he is now. Gus, come. My golden retriever, who's going to be my service dog, is
Being a pain right now.
yes. um so and I think and that's definitely where it all began. Mama, like I said, you're getting the unfiltered. This is our other dog. And from there, the I'd have periods where I was fine, but then my health really started to deteriorate within a few months after that, and I'd start having more seizures and having issues with like memory loss or excuse me with finding my words, with memory loss or with finding my words. Pretty soon it was starting to get to the point where I was having a hard time walking. Um, or, I'd be dealing with, pain in my stomach or constant migraines, extreme fatigue. And it just, it was like, for whatever the reason, after that day, everything just kind of started snowballing and going downhill, to where now, um, he does, like, Josh is my caregiver. He is he is considered my caregiver. Um, all the times that we end up in the hospital, which, I mean, this month alone,
Well,
it's not even the end of the month, and I think we've been
3 times.
we've been in the hospital already 3 times this month. Um, I can't drive anymore, because of the seizures and because I can't regulate my heart rate. So I get dizzy very easily, and I get to the point where I feel like I'm going to pass out, or I risk passing out very easily. So it's not safe for me to drive anymore. He drives, he cooks. There are days where he helps get me dressed. He'll help wash my hair on days that I can't do it by myself, or give me a bath. Um, he, um, there have been times where he's a musician and he's had to cancel gigs because
We've had to go to the hospital.
either we've had to go to the hospital, or
There were a couple times where I just wasn't really.
I wouldn't wake up.
What really was, well, it wasn't even completely that she wouldn't wake up. I was really unsure of her health, and I didn't want to leave Lucy on her own with Lindsey, because most of my gigs, even though we moved to Temecula, but most of the places I play are still down in San Diego. So we're, with no traffic, it's 45 minutes. With traffic, it's an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending. So I don't want to put her in a position where, I'm downtown San Diego in the Gaslamp Quarter or something like that playing music, and then I get a call and have to fight traffic to get back up to Temecula. The good news is that we're literally like 3 minutes from the hospital. So if I had to put in a call to have somebody come here, it would happen. But it just sucks having Lucy to be here by herself with all that going on. It's kind of a burden for her at 10 years old to have to worry about mom and, freaking out if she does have a seizure with me not here. Because I don't think she hasn't been here on her own when Lindsay's had, major seizure activity. She's had nights where she's been really, really just done in. She's just been exhausted, and she's in bed and not really doing much. And Lucy kind of does her own thing and pretty much takes care of herself. We kind of got her set up to know how to use the phone, to call me, just to make sure that all our bases are covered, because basically music's my livelihood. Getting a daytime job at this point really isn't much of an option, especially when I can be gone from home for 4 hours and make 8 hours for 2 days and make as much as I would anywhere else working a full week. It's just really logistically is silly to do, and monetarily just, and family wise, it's just makes more sense to.
Most employers would not hire.
Yeah.
Just because he has to take care of me, and
I'd probably miss a lot of work because of it. So it's just one of those things where we kind of work through it, and it's worked so far. But it just it sucks all around for everybody, but especially for her, because I still have to make money to bring an income to the household. And starting next month, when she's out of the Navy, the transition, we found out like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that the transition time for Navy pay to veterans pay can take up to 90 days. So we're probably going to be on my income solely for at least 2 months. We'll have enough money saved up to get through February, trying to make up enough clientele to play gigs to run us through March, and things are starting to pick up monetarily in that aspect. But I mean, it's still going to be kind of a scary situation because we really don't have a lot of savings because most of our stuff has gone into healthcare and medical, and we just her everyday well-being. So,
but I think also like the thing to take away from that is, when you have, especially anybody that is watching this now that, deals with chronic illness or knows somebody who deals with chronic illness, or whether you're a caregiver or not, these are the things, especially in a marriage or any relationship really, like these are the things that will make or break your relationship, whether it's your marriage, whether it's, you're a caregiver for a parent, you're in a relationship, whatever it is. And we have really used this, and I'm not saying that Josh and I are the authority on, what it looks like to be chronically married, but I think that most days we choose to take it and just make the best of it. I know for us, you know, um, I see our marriage is stronger, but there are definitely rough days by all means. It's
we fight a lot out of frustration, not like really out of anything that's. Everybody has his arguments, but a lot of our fights are out of frustration. I can't even speak English. Or out
we
of
have
frustration,
fights and we have farts.
Yeah, and sometimes you have fights about farts. So we honestly, it's mostly out of frustration. And I mean, it's not out of anger at all. It's just one of those things where there are days where, there may be 2 or 3 days in a row where she doesn't even get out of bed, and I'm up and down the stairs getting things for her. And I'm not. It's one of those things where I'm saying that because it kind of puts to tone what I'm speaking about. So it's the frustration of the fact that we can't really get outside of the house and be a family and do cool things. Like we got zoo passes. We had zoo passes the first year we moved out of San Diego. We got them again this past year. And with that being said, we went to the zoo maybe 5 times this past year, and the year before, I used to take Lucy all the time. She how much got sick of it. I don't think she really even cares to go to the zoo. I love going there. It's nice. It's
I like going
nice
there
day.
too.
And plus, they had. I think the last couple times we went, and I took Lindsey, we actually got a wheelchair. We didn't get the motorized wheelchair, which was, man, talk about a workout, pushing 120 pounds of a woman up a hill. And then trying to get her down a hill without dropping her.
It used to be 140. Luckily, well, I've lost a lot of weight because I'm unable to keep down foods now, which is another illness that I'm dealing with. It's it's not as much that you have to push up the hill anymore.
I was getting a hell of a workout every time I went to the zoo, though. But just I think that's part of the frustrating thing of it is that. We're not able to get out and do things. I mean, I think the first year we were out here, we used to go. Was it the first year? Yeah, it's the first year and a half we were out here. We used to go to Cow's Mountain, and and we took a few hikes up the mountain a couple of times just to watch the sunset, and it's gotten to the point to where that's not even a feasible thing to do anymore. It's she'd probably get out of the car and walk to the first steps of the mountain and like, I'm just gonna wait here. And so it's like there's no way on God's green earth that I could
walk
push
like 2 feet, let alone like to the.
There's just no way on earth that a wheelchair is going up that mountain, and it's not even a hard mountain to climb. It's for me it is because I'm freaking out of shape, but But just things like that. I mean, those are things that we don't get to do anymore. I mean, we can drive around, look at the beautiful mountains, and now that it's wintertime out here, there have been some beautiful snow tops on the mountains for high elevation snowfall. We've had all this rain coming in, and that's beautiful. But I mean, I would actually like to go to the mountain and walk around the snow. But
old Lindsey and Josh would have been like, we're gonna go up and climb that thing.
Let's go find out. Well, not really climb. Let's go find out what the mountain is. Drive up there.
I would have climbed it. New Lindsey and Josh are like, oh man, that's a pretty mountain. Man, I'm tired looking at that mountain. It's
just the average, ordinary day things that people can get outside and do
and just take advantage of
it's no longer
such an ordeal for us. I mean, even going to Target, if you go onto my page at my Facebook page at Chronically Rah Rah, there's a video that I post of where we're at Target and Trader Joe's just running simple errands, and it's so taxing on my body to just do a simple errand anymore. Where I come home and I have to sleep for several hours, or
it gets to the point where we choose where we're going to go depending on who has motorized cart access. Because usually if we go to those places first, it doesn't get worn out, so we can do that first. Like go to Target, and if we got to do more shopping, we'll go to Trader Joe's like last, because it's a smaller store and there's not as much walking involved. So, and I can't go on my own because I'm terrible at Trader Joe's. I've grown really to like Trader Joe's. I can't walk out without spending a lot of money. It sucks.
But I would say, going back to how does this affect the marriage? It obviously clearly affects our marriage. I was telling one of my doctors, because I was just really frustrated. There are days that it's more, we love each other very much and we're very, very bonded and tight, and I couldn't imagine anybody else, taking care of me. But there are definitely days where it doesn't feel like a marriage. It just feels like he's my caregiver and that's it. And it sucks for me, and it's, and it sucks for him. And before I started the page at Chronically Rah Rah, and before we decided to do the Chronically Married series, which, thank you for bearing with us, as this is our first one, but we'll get better as we continue to do them. That was the doctor's appointment where I told the doctors, I said, you have 6 months to figure out what is going on with me, or I get Dignitas involved and I do death with dignity. Because I was watching this documentary with this guy had ALS and his wife was taking care of him. And no, I don't have ALS. No, I'm definitely not that severe. But, watching what the wife went through, like the last thing in the world I wanted was for my husband to have to go through that. Like, I don't ever feel like he deserves that at all. Like, and there are days that I feel very, very guilty about it, and that's obviously, as the chronically ill person, not the caregiver. That's something I have to work through. But just a couple of weeks ago, I was like so ready to just pull the plug and be done, and contact Dignitas and get the process started to go over to Switzerland and do the death with dignity.
This is one of the arguments we usually have because we've had it not even about health before, just when we were monetary situations, like issues, and when I was out of work and she was out of work, and the best case scenario to her was always the worst case, was always the worst possible solution. You know, when we were out of money, she was ready to move us into a shelter, and now it's gotten to this point with her health, and all of a sudden it's death with dignity. And I completely, you know, that's one of the arguments we have because of the fact to me that, you know, she sees herself as a burden, but without her, you know, it's not the same. And, you know, she has Lucy and me. It's not just me and me saying, okay, well, if you want to die with dignity, that's fine. But it's, you know, it's not even, to me, it's not a choice. I understand for her, because of her health, I can't understand what that's like. I mean, I live with her through it, and I try to see it through her eyes, but I don't know what it's like to have chronic pain and chronic illness and feel the way she does on a daily basis. But, you know, it's come up to where the idea for her of the death of dignity is kind of like a coverall because it's just too much to handle for her, and plus she feels like it's too much for me to handle, and we just disagree on that whole idea. Shalisa asked you if it's hard sometimes, just let me do everything.
Yes, it is. That's a very good question. Um, to go from being, I'm a very, very independent person. Like I do what I want. I do it myself. Like, and that a lot of that is in the way that I was raised. You know, it was like, you know, we're Rigas. We pursue and we go and roar. You know, like, you know, stuff like we just plowed through. Um, that is not your cracker. That is my cracker. Um, sorry, dog. Um, so to just completely let go and have him do everything is almost, I I wouldn't even say it's like giving up. It's more of, I know how bad it is when I can't do it on my own anymore. And I think the worst has been, you know, the driving. Um, not being able to drive anymore. Like, there's just, there was so much independence that was taken away with that. Um,
I think it's even simple things too, because there have been
mm.
days where I've been downstairs and she'll come moseying down the stairs at the speed of non-light, um,
Yeah.
and she'll look like she feels terrible. She's gasping for air, and she's talking about how bad her stomach hurts, and then she'll come down and she just want to come down and get something to drink on her own, get something to eat on her own, and then head back upstairs. And she gets upstairs, and 5 minutes later, I hear her up here vacuuming. So I come up like, "What are you doing? I'll do that." And she's like, "No, I'm gonna vacuum." And it's just, you know, it's just one of those things where she just wants to do something to feel normal on a daily basis. And it's, you know, but there are so many times, like, you know, and the reason that's a good question is because I see how hard it is for her to let go and let me do everything and take care of everything, even something as simple as house chores, just because, you know, she's up in his bedroom 75% of the week, if not more. And so this is probably one of the rooms that gets cleaned the least, because by the time I get here, she's either doing something on the computer or she's sleeping and just doesn't feel good. So I don't want to really bother the idea of coming in and kind of messing up her little temple of solitude, and you know, break the silence and throw everything in the shambles for her. So so usually she gets up. Floors are kind of dirty because Gus has a wonderful predilection for toilet paper chewing. So sometimes I'll come up here and there'll just be toilet paper strewn all over the floor and pencils chewed up from where he's got. And a lot of it too is because our daughter comes in here, and then, you know, Lindsey, if she knocks something
That's
on the
a
floor,
bunch of stuff.
yeah, Lindsey, if she gets up and knocks something on the floor, it's probably not going to get picked up until I come up because if she sees it, she looks at it and says, "Yeah, that's not going to happen." So, the bedroom of our house gets the messiest just for that simple reasons. But yeah, I mean, I see a lot where it's hard for her to let go, but I also understand because if she can get up and do if the one thing she can do throughout the day is vacuum a 10-foot square patch of carpet in our house, then at that point it's kind of like a small little victory.
Um, it's so yeah that's been the hard part, and as far as like the dignitas, and what I was gonna say is, obviously, God has some really like God's timing is always perfect. Um,
Although I didn't think so the first year and a half of our marriage.
but hopefully we're closer to answers. Um, in regards to my illnesses, and hopefully we're going to ask to be tested for for another syndrome that we think will match everything. But even then, even if I am, do test positive for this one thing, there's no cure. There's a bunch of chronic illnesses that fall under it. None of those have cures. A lot of them are debilitating. A couple are life-threatening. So, but I mean, at least we'll have, um, answers.
Yeah, the positive about getting out of the Navy too is the fact that we're going to get to keep our TRICARE program. God willing, it doesn't change with the new stuff that's coming in the legislature. I'm not getting into politics right now, but God willing, if it stays the same, then we'll be able to see civilian doctors without much monetary involvement from us. I mean, it'll still cost, but it's not going to bankrupt us to do it. But that's the good thing is the one thing that really kind of struck me over these past couple months is we started going to Temecula Valley Hospital. Now, in the year and a half that we've been going to the Navy hospitals, we have been passed around department to department. Everybody's taken a stab at what it could be in their general field, and nobody's been able to come up with anything. And we even fought to try to get in-home care. We went to Temecula Valley one time. The next day when they were releasing her, they had already set her up with
an in-home. That was when I had my second set of tonic-clonic seizures.
They had set her up with an in-home care person who was coming like once or twice a week?
I had in-home physical therapy, in-home nursing.
Yeah, so she had like 2 or 3 visits a week from in-home care. And every time we go there, as opposed to a Navy hospital, she gets better care. The care facilities are more timely fashioned. They're more, they have a better triage set up. I mean, we go in there and they have people coming out, nurses come out from the emergency room, back triage, out into the emergency room to take the vitals. And they have people who will go around while you're sitting in your seats, take your vitals, get your information, so they're not just taking you back in the room. Now, we've had to do that one time, I think, where we had to go back into like the little waiting area room where they'd take your vitals and stuff and then send you back out. But actually, they didn't even send us back out. We just waited there until a bed opened up for her. But it's just the overall care from a civilian hospital as opposed to military hospital. Let me see here.
Have I had a complete thyroid
panel test? Antibody test out of all the testing they have.
So antibody testing we're going to start working on. thyroid levels, I think I've had my thyroid levels tested a couple times, and so far they look okay. So one of the things we're actually looking at for a diagnosis is a syndrome called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And what that is it's an umbrella condition that from that you end up getting a lot of other like chronic illnesses, such as like postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, mass activation cell disease, or MCAD, um, and gastric dysmotility. And basically, it's your body's inability to produce enough collagen. And a lot of people that have ESD, one of the um, biggest categories, because there's like 6 different types of ESD. One of the most diagnosed types is the hypomobility. Either one that you have, like you still end up dealing with all of these other things, but like hypomobility being like, some people can take their thumb and I don't know if you can see this. Some people can like take their thumb and touch it to their forearm, or what you consider a lot of you people use, that we would consider being double jointed, because I'm an 80s baby, he's a 70s baby. So we didn't, we just considered it as, oh, well, we're double jointed. I can pop my hips out of socket and not even think twice about it. I can take my elbows and like almost touch them together. And I used to do this. Like I used to run track in primary and high school. And anytime I would run, and I always thought I was just out of breath, but that would be the one thing I would do, and people would look at me like I had 3 heads. They were like, "That's disgusting. I can't even believe you're doing that." And I'm like, "What? Everybody can do it." And I never really thought about it. But that's one of the things that we're having looked at, and if I end up getting that my tests come back positive, that for Ehlers-Danlos, which I'd have to have a skin biopsy to test for the collagen to see if it's hypomobility, and then the blood test only tests for vascular ESD. And if it's vascular ESD, we're really no bueno, because that is definitely very life-threatening. But anyway, we're not going to go there yet. But it would explain everything else that has been going on for the past 2 years, and even before that, so many things that I just wrote off as, oh, it's nothing. Oh, this happens all the time. Oh, I need, just get over it. But antibody testing, it is one of the tests that we are having looked at. That's a good question too. So what are we learning from all this as a chronically married couple? What are we learning? What have we learned, and what are we continuing to learn?
What are we learning? Well, that's kind of a very loaded question. I don't know. I mean, it just depends on what aspect what aspects of life you're talking about in regards to what are we learning. I mean,
like in regards to us and our marriage, or like for you personally, like for you as a husband, or us in our marriage.
I know. I mean, for me specifically, I'm learning how to be more of a provider. Not to say I wasn't trying to be a good husband when we first got married, but I know that the illnesses that you've run into, your health issues, has honestly taught me, or actually led me down a path to be more of a leader in our household, more of a rock in our household than I ever was before. Because up until a year and a half ago, I mean, she was pretty much the rock. I mean, she was the main provider of the household. She did everything and took care of pretty much everything we did. And all I had to do was
show up.
show up pretty much. It's pretty much what it amounted to. It's what it felt like. But the roles, and I say the roles reversed because obviously we rely a lot on her income in regards to the Navy, and obviously the Navy pension, whatever she's getting when she gets out. But what I'm doing now is basically
It's okay, Gus Gus.
I'm actually forging ahead, doing a lot more work to become. Dear Lord, I'm having a hard time finding my words this evening. Trying to being more successful at what I do, so we can provide more money for our household, so we don't have to worry about her income anymore. And that way, we'll have a lot more in the end in regards to what we'll be able to save. But figuring out more options in music rather than just playing out, writing, finding, publishing, things like that. But in regards to what else I've learned, I mean, obviously when she went in the Navy, I mean, dear Lord, it was a year by myself. I had a lot of help from our mainly from her mom and dad with Lucy. A few friends kind of struck in there every once in a while to help with Lucy as well, but her mom and dad were instrumental in helping with Lucy while Lindsey was gone, while I was playing music and working and everything else. But I would say that it's I've learned how to be a better parent to Lucy. I still go off on her sometimes, and she's learning a lot of my bad habits. Because I got really bad road rage. Please don't judge me for this. So I there are times, and I curse in the car a lot when I'm alone, because everybody says, "Oh, San Diego drivers are terrible," and when you're in Cincinnati drivers are terrible, and Kentucky drivers are terrible. It doesn't matter what state you're in. People are terrible drivers except for you, and that's just the way it is. But I have a bad temper behind the wheel, and there have been a few times where I've cursed people out while Lucy's in the car. Actually, I've tried to silently not curse at people when I've, let go of a few middle fingers. And there was one incident last year where somebody had cut me off. It's one of those deals where somebody cuts you off and you're doing speed limit 65, 70 miles per hour, and they decide they need to get over in your lane, and then they drive 10 miles per hour slower as soon as they get in your lane. So I got irritated, and she heard me. I didn't curse at the person, but anyway, we drove by him, and so this was like we're in the middle lane. I get over on the right side, and I'm driving by them, and I look in the rearview mirror as we're passing the car, and I see this little 10-year-old middle finger doing this to the people as we drove by. I wouldn't suggest teaching your kids this, but she picks up on stuff, and
Parrot fail on our part.
Yeah, that's really the only place I'm a terrible person is when I'm behind the wheel of a car, and obviously, Lindsey was gone a lot the first 4 or 5 months we were out here. We were by ourselves because Lindsey was on the ship, and then when she did get back, she was at work a lot, and she had to do 24-hour commands on the ship. Yeah, she was at work a lot, and sometimes she would stay the night because she would get out late and things like that. So it was still me a lot with Lucy. So she picked up on a lot of my bad habits, and we were in the car a lot because we were driving back and forth to the base, and then we would go out, and I was trying to get out of the house and do things with her because otherwise we're just cooped up doing absolutely nothing. So the one thing I have learned is how to be a little bit more patient with people so I don't teach my daughter bad habits. That's another thing I've learned. In regards to us specifically, I think I just probably have learned to be more patient in regards to our relationship. be more patient because of her illness. Um, you know, sometimes conversation doesn't come easily, not because just for the simple fact that she has a hard time formulating sentences a lot of times. And it's almost like I call it deja vu talk. She'll say something to me, and then she'll say it 3 seconds later again, and I'm just, I'm just like, we had this conversation just 2 seconds ago. I think we're good. So that's probably the biggest thing is patience. I think a lot of marriages, that's the biggest thing that you kind of learn as your marriage evolves. Some people are patient from the beginning. Some people have patience. Some people lose patience and gain it again. But I think patience is like the biggest thing in a marriage, because even though you're with somebody um, for life, it's one of those things where you're going to have times where you're 100% in, and sometimes you're not going to be 100% in. You're not giving 100% because, for whatever your reasons are, you're tired, you're irritated, lines of communications aren't open. Sometimes a lot of communications in our situation just aren't there because sometimes she can't vocalize what she wants to say. And I've in the past I've been pretty bad about being closed off when I have issues. I just kind of retreat into my own little corner of the world and don't really speak out that much. And that's where a lot of our issues stem from early in our marriage. Now everything's pretty much on the table. I mean, we have arguments, but I think that's mainly me trying to work through how to communicate better. And sometimes the communication comes out as frustration or argument just because it's not something I'm accustomed to. So I might snap at her, and then I'm like, I have to come up and like apologize to her because I'm just like, I was an only child. I didn't have a lot of practice at doing this with other people and fighting over stuff and learning how to give. And I still don't share food very well. The whole Joey shit doesn't share food from friends. I'm really bad at
Joey
that.
don't share food. You're lucky I can't eat it.
I know. Well, but there would be times. I'm trying to share some funny stories, but there have been plenty of times. So we'll be out and about, and we're doing shopping, and it gets like 7 o'clock, and I don't really want to go home and try to make dinner, so I'll stop out and when we go to In-N-Out Burger as a reference, and I'll ask Lindsay, "Do you want anything?" And she'll say no, and so I'll order a meal for myself and one for Lucy. We'll get fries, and then I ate my burger, reach in the bag, grab some fries, and Lindsay's ate all of them. And I'm like, "You said you weren't hungry. Where are my fries?" And it never fit up until a month ago when she was really stopping to keep anything down. It was a constant battle for me because it was one of those things where like, Josh, she's your wife, she's allowed to have your fries. It's just God, I am such a selfish prick when it comes to food. I'm a jerk in the car, and I don't like people eating my food. Those are two things I have a problem with. I'm still working through that. But.
Probably loving the fact that like my diet now only consists of like a couple crackers or.
Well, no, because now if I get something, I come home, the fries stay in the bag because I'm so used to eating them that I don't even touch them. So I usually can just get like a sandwich or something and be completely fine because you don't even touch the fries anymore, or you do, and then you come upstairs and I hear the moaning of the ghost of food Christmas past. So.
I think he's definitely learned he is a great advocator for me. When I first started getting sick, he just kind of like, went along with it and hung out in the back and didn't really say a lot. And I was more the mouthy person. And I think a lot of that has to do with, number one, I'm mouthy to begin with. But number two, my medical knowledge and background. And so I have no problem telling a doctor that they were an effing idiot.
And I generally have no idea.
Like, and he just, never didn't know, when his parents, when his dad died and his mom died, I was the one that was advocating for them, being their medical advocate and taking care of them. But since I've been sick, he's really stepped up on advocating for me, which is so important, especially on the days or the times that I can't advocate for myself, either because I'm in too much pain or I'm, very postictal from a seizure or can't even get the words out. He has been the one to do that and be the advocate for me. Anybody that really knows Josh knows, like, he won't fight with anyone. Like, he's non-confrontational. He's just like, he will bend over and take it. And
I had to yell at an anesthesiologist
in the
2 weeks
last
ago.
2 years, he has really stepped up his game and has told people, he's told
God.
people that they can pick one and suck it.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and they had we went to the Navy hospital at Camp Pendleton. Was it about 2.5 weeks ago? Might have been a little bit longer, but I think the last time in the hospital we went to Temecula. That was last week, right? So we were at Camp Pendleton, and they were having a hard time running a PICC line on her, and
not a PICC line,
not PICC line. Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just a peripheral.
Peripheral. So basically, they had this guy who's an anesthesiologist, supposed to be the guy that can do this, and he comes in and he's using equipment, trying to find veins for 20 minutes.
In ultrasound guided.
20 minutes, this guy's like looking for a vein, then he starts poking, and it's just one of those things where, and it happens a lot with Navy doctors. It's just really, not Navy doctors, but just the staff in general. And this guy is just like poking. He's got a needle in her arm. She's grimacing. She's cursing. She's using F-bombs and, son of a mother and all this other stuff. And like for like a good 45 to 60 seconds, and he's got the needle, like this is her arm. He doesn't have the needle flush. It's sticking out like this, and it's bending. And he's like, after 60 seconds of her cursing, goes, "Does that hurt?" And I'm like, what the hell? Dude, are you really asking her that question? I was like, that doesn't even look normal. He's like, I'm going to get the blood out this way. And I'm like, that's great. Get the blood out. Get the fuck away from my wife. It's just people, I don't know. It's more frustration, but it's also the fact that I just feel after this past year and a half of dealing with this, that my tolerance level for people who work in hospitals a lot of times is just very low. A lot of it's bedside manner. A lot of it's just the redundant questions, the same questions over and over again, and then people who come in and do things like the anesthesiologist and doesn't really show any remorse or act like, oh, I'm not trying, say I'm not. My intention is not to hurt you. And I'm like, well, your intentions are really failing right now.
The path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah,
Get that thing out of my arm.
So I think over the past 6 to 8 months, I've been a lot more vocal about what happens when you go in the hospital, and especially when we talk to doctors who are explaining to us, what their findings are in blood work and EKG readings and CAT scans and all this other stuff. And, we'll go into an ER and they're like, we're going to run a CAT scan. I'm like, dude, I don't know why you're going to run a CAT scan. You guys never find anything on these stupid things. And, the only, like I said, the only time where I felt like she's getting the best care possible is when we go to Temecula Valley Hospital. I am so just done with medical doctors. And I'm not saying that all of them are bad. Navy doctors, and I'm not saying the Navy system, like the people who work in that system, are bad doctors. It's just one of those things where maybe if you're dealing with something for 3 months and you finally get an answer, you're more willing to accept that they're doing the best they can. But when you're going through a 1.5 to 2 year process of trying to figure out what's wrong with your wife and nobody has an answer, and you're seeing 4 5 different departments and all of them are doing what they can on in their specific field and not coming up with an answer, it's just one of those things where you start to lose patience, you start to lose faith in these people, because you're talking to the same doctors over and over again, and they're doing the same test over and over again, and they're not doing anything different. And trying to get an outside referral took us it was actually almost a year before we got the referral to UCSD, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. For neurology. When you come to find out, obviously it's probably not neurological, but I mean, who knows? But they couldn't find anything at UCSD. But we're trying to get referrals to other hospitals for people in other fields to try their hand to see what they can find for us, to see what they can find for her, to get an answer, so we can either accept the faith of what she's given, or finding something that maybe can be treated or worked through. But it's one of those things where I'm at a point where I don't have time to sit in Navy medical hospitals anymore and go through the same charade over and over again. It's just way too much. And I don't know why some hospitals are better than others, but I just feel like the hospital that's 3 minutes from our house is better. And I know she got called out on going here the first time she went, and I'm like, dude, she was having a seizure. I'm not gonna drive an hour to Navy Medical. The hospital up here decided to keep her because I fought to keep her up here. I didn't want her to be transferred to NMCSD. For one, it's just we live up here now. It's just a pain in the rear end to have to go in there. Secondly, I wanted somebody else to look at her with new eyes rather than going to the same place and getting the same people with the same diagnoses. It's just diagnoses. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at now with the whole situation. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some referrals to better doctors. I like to say that I'm helping out and trying to find new medical possibilities for what's wrong with her, but obviously she sits up here. She's got all the time in the world laying in bed, so she sits on the computer for hours at a time researching her symptoms and looking at other people's issues and seeing what kind of jives with what she has, to see if it's something we can present when we go to our appointments and say, look, we've tried these things, you can't find anything. Since you're not going to suggest anything else, why don't we try this? Because obviously nobody else is going to suggest anything else other than what's in their field. So we really do have to advocate for ourselves. So pretty much she does the research and I'm the mouthpiece when we go to the doctors now, mainly because the doctors does it a lot quicker if I can talk, because God love her. Her talking to the doctors, it's the aphasia and everything else can make what should be like a $10 or 10-minute or 15-minute doctor's appointment turn into an hour, because it's just the talking does not come out as fluently as it used to. So I try to be the mouthpiece to streamline the doctor's visits, make sure they touch on everything that should be touched on, and if they're giving us the same line, I try to put it into the visit as quickly as possible, because it's not worth going there anymore. It's just more frustrating to sit there and hear the same stuff spewed back to you over and over again. So I don't know, how do you feel like you've grown? What have you learned?
I'm learning to be okay with relying on you. And I'm learning to allow you to advocate for me, which is big, because as much as there are times where I just want to tell medical personnel, to
Pick one and suck it.
Yeah, to pick one and suck it.
That's become a big thing in our household over the past couple months. So
I step back, and I'm learning to step back and just let it, whatever is going to be, and I am learning to just embrace what I have with you. Um, you know, we all like to think when we get married that, we're all gonna, when you get married to someone that, you're gonna grow old into your 80s or 90s together. Um, but I really, truly don't know if that's gonna happen for us. And so I'm just learning to embrace every little awkward moment that we get. Um, and well, a lot of the stuff that you do for me now, you know, um, you should be doing when I'm in my 60s, or when I'm in my 70s or 80s. Maybe this is just a way of you getting to do that stuff now, because you won't be able to do that stuff. You won't be able to do that stuff then. Um, so I am learning to embrace every moment and just treasure what, those little moments. And communication, and working on that. But, well, we've been here for like an hour already. We didn't mean to. I had this set for an hour, but yeah, if anybody's on here and they have any questions for us, we'll kind of like leave the floor open for a couple minutes for some Q&A. If there's anything on your mind that you want to talk about, or any questions that you have in regards to us being married as a chronically ill couple, or just being married in general, or if you have any questions about the about this process and what it's been like, and you know what it's been like, for us to deal with me being chronically ill, um, and in a debilitating way.
another thing you can do as well is, even when the video is over, obviously it comes back up on Facebook after a short amount of time. If you watch the video, even if you don't make it all the way through, I know at the beginning of the video we said if you have any questions, feel free to comment on the video below it, ask questions, things that we can, next time we do one of these videos, we can touch on those subjects and let you know. So even if you're not watching now and you do watch this later and you actually have a question,
or you have a topic that you'd like us to bring up in our next video of in our next series of Chronically Married, just by all means, ask Josh, ask myself, put it in the comments below. And if you know anybody that you would think that this would help them out, then definitely by all means share it. We'll try to do this. I think, depending on the kind of response that we get, everybody that has watched this so far, whether you're watching us live or whether you're joining us in the after, in the afterlife, or you know what I'm talking about. At any rate, let us know what you think about it. Let us know if you would like to see more of it, or say, hey, can you guys focus on what is it like to do this, or how does it affect kids, or how does it even affect your sex life? Like, we're open. Like, we are willing to be very vulnerable and open, in order to, if it helps anybody else, or that's going through or knows somebody, then it's worth it for us. But yeah, if you have any questions, by all means, just post them in the comments below, and we'll absolutely answer them. But in the meantime, we really appreciate you guys listening to us, and our first in the series of Chronically Married. And look for us probably maybe again in like 2 weeks. We may try to do this like every other week thing, unless if it starts getting really popular, then we'll go to every week. But I think right now we'll do every couple weeks because then we'll have stuff that we can build on.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, a couple shout outs though. I mean, I'd like to thank Margie Ross. You are the best. I made when Lindsey was making videos and posting all these things before Christmas. I kept asking for somebody to send Skyline chili out here, and she sent a care package. It was a gift basket. I think there were probably like 4 or 5 cans of.
She made him a very happy person.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 cans of the Skyline chili with some new, spaghetti and the oyster crackers and the hot sauce. It was
He was happier than a pig in shit. Like if you want the way to his heart is
through my stomach.
Is through his stomach.
There's just no
with
doubt.
Skyline. Like our Cincinnati friends, you want to give him some Skyline, like, oh my gosh, he'd be happier than a pig in shit.
Yeah. And nobody's sent anymore. I'm good now. Right now, I'm really good. But honestly, because it also is expensive. I looked at how much that was, and Margie, that was like way above and beyond.
Yeah, it was.
But so Margie, you're awesome. Sam, I miss playing music with you. I miss playing with music with you a lot. I'm actually talking to a female vocalist out here now that I think could possibly work out, but that's, like I said, high standards there in regards to, there's no really filling the boots of that of Sam. So that being said, I think those are my only 2 shout outs. Rob Wassler. Obviously got to drop the Wassler name in there. Miss you guys, man. Miss everybody back home. I'm the one, actually, just real quick, I'm the one who's supposed to make the decision on whether we're going to move back to Cincinnati or not. Right now, I'm having a hard time making that decision because I really, as much as I miss a lot of people back in Cincinnati, it's one of those things where I really like it out here way too much. It's like, it's winter here. It's like 50 degrees, and it's awesome to me that you see people walking around in like thick coats and like scarves. Like it's like you would think the Arctic what the heck they're having there? I don't know, the polar vortex is what it is the guys have there. You think that's what was going on out here. I think the coldest it's gotten here is maybe in the 40s, but it never gets like into freezing at all. And I think people have had like frost on the windshield like 3 or 4 times this winter and just freak out. It's just crazy. But I don't know, it's really beautiful out here. I think the biggest cost of living thing out here is basically where we live. The cost of renting is outrageous. Like where we live right now would probably go for maybe $1,200 in Cincinnati, depending on the area. It might even be lower in some other areas, but I mean, we're paying like almost $800 more here to live. And we might actually, if we decide to stay here, I'd probably consider finding a different place. But I haven't made that decision yet, and I know a lot of people want us to move back home, but I guess it also depends on Lindsey's health and where we end up in regards to diagnosis for her in the next few months. Because if we can find doctors out here that are going to be able to find a solid path in regards to a diagnosis, then I think it'll probably make my decision pretty easy out here. Because if we can find a good place out here for her to start getting well, then I think it'll make all the difference in the world. And if we do stay out here, obviously we'll all of us will start coming out to visit and see everybody again. But like I said, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do yet. I think it's all going to be based on where we're at probably by May or June, and if we can get enough referrals and start to find some reasonable avenues for her to start feeling better or get a diagnosis that tells us what's going on. So, but that's all I've got.
No, Well, we thank you guys so much for joining us tonight and our first of our series, Chronically Married, in Sickness and in Health. I invite you to go onto our Facebook page at Chronically Rah Rah. And I'll put that in the comments below. Definitely go on our page, give it a like, where you'll see me posting all kinds of videos, whether it's me, whether it's, things with doctor's appointments, my training with my golden retriever Gus, which in a couple of days I'm actually going to do a live video with the some of the training that I'm doing with Gus now, and getting him prepared to become my golden superhero or my service dog. So again, if you have any questions, just post them in the comments below. We'll definitely read them and we'll get back to you guys, and or we'll answer them at our next series. And I'll definitely put out an event for our next live series for Chronically Married. Again, we thank you guys so much for joining us, and we thank you for your support, your questions, your love, your prayers, and we will see you again next time. So, good night.